Question 10. A parabola has a focus of f negative 6, 6 and a directrix of x equals negative 8. P at xy represents any point on the parabola, while D at negative 8y represents any point on the directrix. The following is Marcel's work. Step 1. The distance of the focus to the point is equal to the distance of the directrix to the point. And then we have step 2, step 3, step 4, and step 5. Identify each incorrect step. Select all answer choices that both state an incorrect step and explain why it is incorrect. If there is only one incorrect step, select only and the answer choice that states and explains the incorrect step. Okay, well step 1 is correct because we do want to know the distance between the focus and the point on the parabola is equal to the directrix and the same point on that parabola. So then step 2, let's check to make sure that they had the distances correct. So I guess this was x1, y1, and p in this case would be x2, y2. So we would have x2, which is x, minus our x1, which is negative 6. So far so good. Plus y2, which is y, right there, minus our y1, which is 6. So far so good. So then when we come up here, they have our directrix point as x1, y1 now, and our point on the parabola is again x2, y2. So we would have x2, which is x, right there, minus our x1, which is negative 8, plus our y2, which was y, minus our y1, which was also y. So step 2 is correct. They correctly substituted into the distance formula, and so now we're going to check between that step 3 is correct. So actually the very first step between step 2 and step 3 is to square both sides so that that square root and the square are inverses, so they'll undo each other and we'll just be left with what's underneath the square root sign. So I'm going to use Symbol Lab to help check this because it's quicker and it's more efficient time-wise and cleaner to write, to explain instead of just trying to type it out. So I'm going to set solve for, and I know we're solving for x because we have this y minus y right there, and what you're solving for is going to be the opposite variable to the one that has this match that will reduce down to 0. So I know I'm solving for x, and then it'll be x minus negative 6, and that's being squared, plus y minus 6, and that's being squared, and that equals x minus a negative 8, and that's being squared, plus y minus y, and that's being squared. So then if we click this solve for, I know what I'm looking for this step 3 because it's in completely expanded form. So I would come down here and I would check that they had this, the x minus a negative 6 did change to x plus 6, and that x minus a negative 8 did change to that x plus 8, so that's where they got those two. So the x plus 6 plus y minus 6 squared being expanded, here are the steps, and so we would have it right here. We have the x squared plus 6 is x squared plus 12x plus 36, and that's where that shows up at the very beginning. And then we have this y minus 6 squared right here, and it expands out to be y squared minus 12y plus 36. So far that's correct. And then we want to check this x plus 8 squared. Again, remember that this x minus negative 8 does simplify down to the x plus 8 squared. It is x squared plus 16x plus 64. So that is correct. And this y minus y squared again reduces down to 0. So far step 3 is correct. So then let's jump down to step 4. There will be a subtle difference between this step 4 because it is all of the work after expanding them to this step. That is all of the work in between step 3 and step 4. The subtle difference is, notice that this is a positive 4x and this is a negative 4x. That's an easy change. You can do that by multiplying both sides by a -1, and that will just change each of these signs to the opposite. So since that's a negative, it'll now be a positive. Since that's a positive, it'll now be a negative, and if that's a negative, it is now a positive. And that's because we multiplied both sides by -1 so that we could match that to be a positive 4x. So we have 4x is equal to, we have a positive y squared, we have a positive y squared. We have a negative 12y, we have a negative 12y, and we have a positive 8, and we have a positive 8. So that step is correct. And then it says to simplify. So to simplify, we would divide by 4. Because this is 4 times x, so we would divide by 4. We would divide everything by 4. And I'm just going to do it on this side. So 4 divided by 4 reduces down to 1, so that's where we end up with the 1x right there. And then this y squared has an implied 1 right there. So then this will be 1/4. And again, remember, it'll be a positive 1/4. I'm noticing that this one's a negative 1/4, so that is a mistake. And then this is a negative 12 divided by 4, which would be a negative 3, which is correct. And then they have a positive 8 divided by 4, which is a positive 2. So the only step or thing that they had incorrect was this symbol right here, that negative symbol. So step 5 is incorrect because he divided by 4 incorrectly. Right, because a positive 1 divided by a positive 4 is a positive 1/4. And so that's how I would go through this question and answer it. And since there is only one incorrect step, remember to select the only button as well.